And we're back. Thanks for sticking with me. It's Krystal, the host of Moving with Meaning, the podcast, where actions have meaning, words have meaning, and we open up the conversations to discover what's your next move. I happen to be inspired by this episode today by a situation that happened this morning, actually. But first, we need to set the theme. So, the word of the day is dismissal. This is an act of treating something or someone as unworthy of serious consideration. In other words, rejection. I know what you're thinking. How is it a situation with my daughter influenced such an adverse theme? Well, let me tell you first, okay? Let me just get that out first. Yesterday, my daughter told me the day before that she had a science project due tomorrow on the way to dropping her off at school. It was something to do with moon phases, so I hopped into mommy save the day mode and got some small white spheres and paint so that when she got home, she was ready to go. She stayed up all night and got up this morning to finish that project. It wasn't perfect, but it was done. I had to clean up the remnants from all the cutting that she had going on. I swept everything into this dustpan. We have this trash can that's in a pull-out cabinet with 2 small trash bins in it. But because it was a cabinet, it only pulled out so far. I knew that if I dumped the dustpan in, the contents wouldn't go directly into a single bin, but spread across both and fall through some gaps. But I did it anyway. And guess what? What I expected to happen, happened. I was immediately frustrated at myself because I knew better. Why didn't I just take one bin out and dump it in there and then put it back? Nope, I was trying to defy logic and force my own wants or hopes into the situation as if my stubbornness would defy gravity. No. So, in today's episode, we're going to talk about how we ignore our intuition of a situation but dismiss it and end up with what may feel like 2 steps back or wasted time, which, spoiler alert, there are no mistakes, only growth opportunities. How many times have you approached a situation or interaction and knew it was gonna go bad, but instead of changing approaches or taking a moment to recalibrate, you just went ahead against your knowledge, as in you knew, and you are smart because you recognized how this was going to end ahead of time. But hey, we went with the flow, and yep, that went exactly the way you thought. I'm going to share a few of those examples with you today from various perspectives, though without me changing who I am. Not that I think I am perfect, but I have a standard personality that is consistent through my growth that remains constant. I'm laid back, maybe to a fault. I'm kind, too kind. I give others the benefit of the doubt, too much leeway. And I'm soft-spoken. My husband may disagree on that one. So, hey, this is just what I kind of see myself as. Now, I've grown to be more direct, but I'm still a work in progress for setting the boundaries. So, what do you say? Let's get it. Let's go. So, we're going to talk about as a wife. So, I believe the majority of wives can relate to this from their spouse. But my husband is logical until it comes to planning. He's very theoretical. This is not a slight, okay? I think it was more about him validating his position as the man, air quotes. If I ask him to hang a picture, he's going to level it and make sure it gets done, but he won't put it where I asked because he thinks it looks better a certain way. I would say move it up because the kids are going to knock it over, because kids. He won't do it, and then the kids knock it over, and of course I can't remind him of this because it's interpreted as condescending. But what I'm really trying to convey is believe in me like I believe in you. We aren't in competition of who got the most decisions right. Like, I'm not even playing the game. So who you going against? Anyway, there was this home improvement project we had in our other house to extend our back patio. He asked me how far I wanted it and what I had in mind. So I wanted to extend the roof line to go over the patio extension so it would be covered. Okay. Well, he like farted all over that and said no, because that would be too expensive. The HOA would need to approve and all this other stuff. It wasn't that it was true, but that he had just completely dismissed what I wanted after he had asked me. So he had came up with this DIY plan where he framed the extension, dug it out, and pressed it down with clay, gravel, and sand. Now here's the thing. Kudos, because what he did was awesome. It was on point. It was just a lot of work. And I don't personally think he had enough time to do it in the midst of trying to be a dad and a husband and engage with us. So it was very intense. So it sat that way for a while. I'm talking about for like 8 months. Then came bonus time, and I had like a $15K bonus. You heard? So he found some company to build us a pergola, the one that is attached to the house, which is still not covered, but moving on. He told me they quoted him $10K. So I asked if that includes pouring the concrete. He said no, and I'm like, well, if I'm going to pay somebody $10,000 to build something, I better be able to use it when they are done, which we wouldn't because the sand, remember? We didn't finish it. We went back and forth, and I just gave in. I knew that he would leave that project unfinished for as long as I allowed. And after they built that pergola, it was maybe 2 years when I finally said, finish this. We ended up getting some flagstone and quick dry cement and did it ourselves. But 2 years? Really? I think he has learned from that, but we haven't spoken on it. I just caught a hint from another home improvement project we are doing where he mentioned it in like a single sentence. And knowing my husband, that was enough for me. Now, moving to the different perspective. As a mother, honestly, my oldest two, I get, but that last one, I wasn't ready for this. If the phrase, "you've been here before" was a person, that's him. Super stubborn and a know-it-all. See, the older ones, they don't argue back too much. At all much, really. I can really tell you that. But this little dude will debate you. He is respectful. I'm not about to be yelling at my kids for expressing themselves respectfully because they are learning. And they learn differently, and this one takes after his father. So I tend to coach my youngest soccer and basketball teams. And in a particular game, he was playing goalie, and I explained that he needed to step up from the goal line to give himself some room if he needed to, step back a little bit without going over the line. Well, he stayed on that line, and the ball got kicked right at him, and he caught it. His face was so precious with the shock and the look of approval he gave me, but because of the momentum on that ball, he took a few steps back and ended up behind the goal line. Now, these were 6-year-olds, so we let that pass. But when it was halftime, my boy came over to me and whispered, "Did that goal count that I caught?" I said, "It should have, because you crossed the line with the ball." He just smiled sheepishly and nodded. I said, "We didn't count it, but do you understand why I said to stand up in the goalie box?" He nodded again, and ever since then, he's been good with taking direction in sports, that is. We still working on everything else. Now, moving on to another perspective. As a cousin, and I will limit this to specifically my maternal side and my first cousins on that side. As I said in the prelude, I am a part of a large family. My mother is the youngest of 12 kids, and there were 12 of us first cousins, I believe. My grandparents were incredibly nurturing and encouraged us to be close. And you don't argue with grandparents. So my expectation is that all of my cousins want each of us to succeed, even if it surpasses them. If I'm being real, we got a lot of issues within the first cousins. Unless you are within the family, you can't see the cracks, the flaws, the backbiting, the plotting, etc. But that might be another episode. I don't know. I remember spending time with certain cousins that my mom warned me about. Not like they're gonna hurt you. No, because believe me, if I send out a bat signal, the whole of Baton Rouge will be in Houston. But it was more like drama and messy. But still, I continued to ignore that even after several examples was demonstrated they didn't have my best interests in mind. There was this one climactic point when I said enough is enough. No, not with my words, but my actions. I can dedicate an entire episode on wedding planning, okay? But we're going to keep this short. My husband and I were planning out the wedding party, and I didn't have two of my boy cousins in it. This one cousin went around and plotted to have no one from my mother's side of the family show up. Like they were going to boycott my wedding because these two particular cousins weren't groomsmen. Now, ask me if those two cousins she was advocating for actually cared. No, indeed. I had this confirmed by other people in the family, so I knew this to be true. How cruel was that? Why would you ruin a day like that for me? She had never done anything that I knew of to that extreme before. But my mom told me, I told you. I guess deep down, I knew too. I just refused to believe that my own blood would do something so malicious. But people are who they are. All right. Moving on to the final perspective. The friends. Yay. It's so complicated. It's ridiculous. I don't know. Okay. So if you haven't related to the above examples, this one is for sure to make a global connection. I remember venting with a close friend about the decision I was going to have to make pretty soon, which was ending a friendship. And so it was interesting because she categorized friends like cable packages. She's like, you got your basic, you got your standard, and then you have your premium. And it seems like this standard is trying to go into premium. It's funny, but it's totally true. But here's the thing. I do the same, but mine is by proximity to me. Let me explain. I have what I call the embrace friends. So these are the ones who accept me as I am. They know me and know my heart. There is just a clutch of these that I have, right? They're not too many, okay? But they're within embracing distance of me. Now, next are the arm's length friends. So imagine holding your arms out and kind of keeping them that far away. They don't get too close because see, they can't hurt you if they get that close. So these I see socially. In fact, more regularly than I do my close friends, but I don't reveal much of anything personal to them. To my embrace crew, do not take this the wrong way. I engage with them socially because that is where their comfort level is, even though they are fully aware that it is not mine. I found that these friends try to wiggle their way into the embrace category. In my examples, I'll go through and tell you how I allowed them the chance and how things went horribly wrong. Lastly, are the wave-worthy friends. We are cool enough to speak and say hello. I can see in the distance and I'll wave, hey, how you doing? And keep it moving. We'll engage in a bit of catch-up small talk, but we don't have each other's contact information and we don't hang out. I see you when I see you, and that's about it. Now, are you thinking what I think you're thinking? The last two categories really aren't friends then, are they? You are right. I'm just using the term generically to make the distinction between friends, acquaintances, and familiars. Let's get into these examples. I have run across people who start in one category and move on to another, either because we've grown, and I use that term loosely. We've evolved in a way that no longer fits the piece, or now they do. Either way. Now, these are examples of friends who are in the arm's length circle. The wave-worthy folks and I have an understanding. It's never going to be more than that, and we agree. So there's no need to really put any examples about that out there for you. All right. So first scenario. I was introduced to this person as the wife of one of the college homeboys. Now, when I say homeboy, this is legit. There were never any advancements or flirting or anything. Also, these were the same friends my husband had. And me and my husband dated in college. And my husband was not about to date anybody who had any past relationships or interests within his friend circle. So that's how this was, okay? Back again. So naturally, you would want to get along with your friend's significant other. And I really did try, but there were certain yellow flags that I noticed. So she was family oriented, and I am too, but she was wanting to see us every weekend and sometimes during the week. This was cookouts, game nights, kick back and hang, just the regular chill. This was new to me at this frequency, okay? Every weekend, and it was exhausting. I'm not a late night person anymore, and I'm also a mother, while she was a late night person without any kiddos. So that's one point. Second point, I also feel like she heard all of these college Krystal stories where I was binge drinking and they were still doing that at that time. Like in this moment in our grown life, they were binge drinking right now. And I remember her pushing drinks on me, like pushing them at me, like, come on, drink, and would get really irritated when I wouldn't indulge. It was like she was sick of hearing about college me and wanted to see it for herself. Now, dare I say, there was a bit of envy there, from the sense that when we, the homies, get together and run back all the drunken stories and craziness, she wasn't part of that. So I'm guessing based off of some of the things she had said before. I'm not going to go off on that tangent. So third point. Then when my husband and I started making a stand to spend time with our nuclear family at our home and stop going out with them to save money, all of a sudden we were acting funny. And then they started acting out. There's more, but needless to say, I felt she was not accepting of who I am authentically and tried to change me into her definition of a friend, as if I needed improving on. The hard part about this is that it ruined the friendship with my college homeboy, as well as his relationship with my husband had also changed. I wouldn't expect anything less than that from my own husband. I'm just saying I lost two friends when I knew at the beginning she and I were not embrace material on either parts. So, second scenario. This friend will sound familiar, but we met in high school and reconnected during our college summers because we went to different colleges. And I felt that I was the embrace friend for her, but I always kept her at arm's length. It was something that made me feel like she was judging me, and every interaction we had felt like she was testing me on that. Let me give you an example. So there was a point where my husband and I were barely staying above water. The daycare we had both the kids at closed at 5:30, so me leaving work at 5 wasn't going to work. And we didn't have the money to pay the overage. So in order for me to leave an hour early, I needed to get to work an hour early. So that equates to less sleep. Now, this is one of the jobs that I posted about. They gave me this mission impossible task. I had to learn a whole new technology and build data assets with it on a timeline. So my whole day, I was stressed trying to succeed and learn. Also, with the income level being as low as it was, I'm trying to figure out what dinner is going to look like. I didn't want the kids to feel the strain from us just trying to keep them fed. Then, in the midst of all this friend was trying to make a move to be closer, I guess. What would happen is she would text me every day with some small talk. I would take a break. When she would text, I would take a break from what I was working on in the day. So that was good. So one day I didn't receive a text. I remember thinking, oh no, she hasn't texted me. I'll text her back. But the day got away from me. The next day comes and again, no text. But by this time, I had clued in on what was going on. She was always the one who initiated the text. And when she didn't, there was no conversation. For her to change her routine, I knew she was thinking that I didn't care about building a friendship. So I found some time and texted her that day. And her first response back was she did that on purpose because she felt like she was the only one trying to build on the relationship. I just said that I had a lot going on and I enjoyed the text, but I am really busy with the job and the kids. And you know what else? I remember thinking after that exchange, how selfish to think that you are a priority over me, my husband, my kids, and my job. All my other friends got it. She didn't. But hey, I ignored my intuition and kept on engaging with this person. Now, what do you think happened when she had kids? You guessed it, those text messages became rather infrequent. And I'm talking once every 2 or 3 months. But it was okay then, because see, it was on her terms. And come to find out, that's how being friends with her operated, on her terms, which I do not do. Now that I think about it, I seem to have been a source about marriage and parenting tips for her. I never asked her for any advice, and I wonder if she read into that more than what needed to be. This one went from arm's length to embrace, and then I don't even think we are even in the wave-worthy category. Third scenario. Now this scenario, I really knew better. And you know what? I never let this person get closer than arm's length. And that was too close even for her. So this was like a friend adjacent scenario. Like she was cool with the person in the first scenario and she just came along with the package, I guess. This person was uber passive aggressive. I noticed it immediately, the competitiveness. And let's clear that up. I mean that she wanted that friend above in the first scenario all to herself. If me and her would have hung out and she wasn't there, she got in her feelings. I mean, okay, She would exclude me on things like pedicures and nights out and then brag about it in front of me. Now, wait a minute. Two things. One, yes, I know I said I was exhausted trying to hang out at their frequency, but at this time, I was hanging strong even though I was being worn down. This is before I made the stand to limit our time. And two, yes, I am thinking, how did my homeboy and his wife, my embraced friend at the time, allow this to happen? Then she actually kicked up some dust and had me and that friend upset at each other about something that she made up. Now, what I will say is that me and that friend in scenario one did handle it the way that you should normally handle it, which is we went to like a Starbucks and basically had a talk in a public place, so we weren't going to be screaming and stuff. But we handled it really well. And what was interesting, I got there, I was like, hey, and her first question was, Krystal, what's wrong? And I was like, nothing. What's your problem? And she's like, nothing. Then after that, all the ish that this person filled her head up with came out, and that was the point where I was willing to continue the friendship with her, but not that drama-seeking one. So I did keep the distance. Needless to say, again, neither lasted, clearly. All right, last scenario, the fourth one. Okay, I'll only call out what this type of person is because I don't believe I've ever come across anyone like this. These are the folks that do not contribute or support your growth and wellness goals. They just look at what they can get out of being associated with you. The what's in it for me, status climbing, jealous name droppers. I will say, I have come across a few folks that I had a tingle that there was a jealous streak, and I would run from them because I think they are incredibly dangerous in every way of the word. While we are speaking on that, I have to say, that is something everyone has evaluated another person and made that conclusion, or perhaps you are on the other side and do not want to admit that of yourself. It's like if you say it, then you sound crazy. This is one of the most difficult things to have receipts on, but I am saying it. Folks out here are jealous, and you know it, they know it, and sometimes they know you know. Now, how about that? There's a lot to unpack here with my extended family dynamics, the communication gap with my husband, parenting 3 kids differently, and each of those friend scenarios. Maybe future episodes will be dedicated to each of them. I tell you what, you tell me. I'll see if I can get a poll going on my Facebook page, but you gotta follow if you want your vote to count. All right. We had some golden nuggets, and you know how we do. I think we add that ketchup just to recap. Number 1, always speak up because it can never be said they were never aware. Number 2, don't let someone's expectation of you influence you to change your authentic self. 3, trust that intuition. Creating distance from people is so difficult. We try to hold on even though you are stronger apart than together. Now, exclude that from marital situations. My husband and I go to counseling all the time, and I love it. And 4, change because you have identified something is worth changing. No one gets to make that decision but you. That's it for the episode today. I ask you to think about some situations that you had where you dismissed the writing on the wall and what lessons you learned from that. Drop a comment if you can relate to the trial and error of friendship matchmaking, communication, yellow flags, and downright no good, don't want to see you succeed toxicity. Even if you haven't had this experience, I'd still love to hear how you took the steps to ensure that you and your boundaries were respected. I love it all, and so will someone else. Make sure you guys subscribe to the show, Moving with Meaning the podcast, and tap that alert bell so you know when these episodes drop. We're on Apple Podcasts now, Amazon Music, and Spotify. If I get enough downloads and follows, I might be inspired to drop a few episodes in a single week. So please share, like, repost, and follow. We're creating a community. Tag somebody. Quick housekeeping before you go. Follow me on Instagram at movingwithmeaning82 and my Facebook page, Moving with Meaning. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn. I do dabble in TikTok at Krystal B. Clark. Links are in the episode. Alrighty, I'm Krystal on Moving with Meaning the podcast, reminding you to take it one step at a time. All moves have meaning. Check y'all later.